Alright, well, we're back with another week of Psycho for Tyco, and we're back with Tyco stuff again. And what we're talking about in this episode is weathering, and that's why we've got the Tyco cars, so that we can practice weathering skills. And as you can see, you can turn something decent into something decenter. And we're going to talk about that next on Psycho for Tyco.
From Tyco, of course.
Alright, and here I'm going to show you my little 7 steps to weathering cars. First step is a wash, and all the wash is 10% to 90% black and regular thinner. So there's not a lot of black in here, and there's a reason for that. Then we have the rust. Rust should be the first one to put on, in my opinion. And this one's about a 5-to-1 mix, and there's a reason for that. And then, of course, I've got the regular rust right here. We've got grime, and again, I've got some black here, and then I've got a very light, and you can see how light it is, kind of grime wash. We have dust, which I'm still kind of playing with the thickness on, but I think I've got it. This is about a 40-70 mix. And then we've got a sun bleach, which is about a 5 to 95 mix. And we're going to be doing these all in certain layers. I have 2 boxcars, which I'm going to show you. If you're just practicing on your weathering, or you're learning about how to weather, then I'll be honest, buying a couple of Tyco cars is a really good way of practicing your weathering skills. And I've got 2 examples here. I've got a light color, which is this second generation rail box, and I've got this first generation New Haven boxcar that I'm going to be working with. Now, I've already weathered one side for my own skills and work, so I'll be weathering the other side. And these cars, I'm not too worried about them, but they are going to get repurposed. They're going to get repurposed for maintenance away service. One of these is going to become like just a generic, probably this one, just a generic tool car. And then this one will probably become a tool car with a modified door. They're going to get painted a crappy gray to where like the old stuff shows through, or they might be painted a good gray. Like this New Haven boxcar, this will be painted in such a way in gray to where the old road name is going to show through. This one's probably going to get painted a full gray. So let us begin. So the first step, really, with any sort of weathering is you want to give it a light wash. Now, what a wash is a wash is going to bring out detail. Now, as you can see, I ran the wash on the roof walk here, and it pronounces the detail, and it gives it that sort of see-through look. Now, wash is applied 2 ways. One is by an airbrush, and one of the things I'll show you is the basic way of using a double action airbrush in this. Double action is a little bit better, and if I've never explained it, what a double action airbrush does, okay, when you push it down, that releases the air, and as you pull back, that gives you the amount of paint that you want to apply. So, just, you know, one of those quick little crash courses in a double action. Can you use a single action airbrush? Well, yeah, you could, but the single action is basically basically a spray can, you know, a rattle can, that just brings out paint a little bit smaller. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the wash, and I'm going to shake it instead of mixing it with the mixer, because I've actually got more thinner than paint. Alright, so we're going to start with the roof walk on the rail box job. Alright, so what we're going to do with the wash on the roof walks to begin with is we're just going to dab a good paintbrush, and we're just going to drop it all in. And you don't really have to worry about how much you put in or how much you fill in. Because all we're trying to do here is we're trying to apply more refined detail. So we kind of want it on thick. Now I could obviously use the airbrush, and then that way have it all washed down, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to apply our brush across, and we'll let that dry. Now, one of the things you do here also that I've learned is you do want to apply it on thick, but don't worry, because when the thinner dries out, that black or whatever weathering you're using will find its way into the crevices. And that's kind of what you want. Alright, so we're going to let that dry. Maybe I'm going to drop that off. And thinner dries pretty quick, so you could probably weather a car during your favorite TV show. Alright, we're going to let that dry. While we're waiting, we will be walk to dry. Right back. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the rest of the wash. Now, I want to do the wash on this side of this New Haven car. And I have another rail box. This one is the 5th generation, or the last generation of the rail box cars, all done in black. This was done by Mahano, and it's kind of weird because it's got a reefer unit in the back. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to give it a wash, and we're going to give it a wash with the airbrush. So I'm going to fill up my airbrush. We'll do the rail box first, and then we'll do the New Haven second. Now all the wash does is, obviously, it brings out the details in the cars. And you do want to use a low air pressure. That's about the lowest I've got. And we're just going to run it across. Just like that. We'll do the same to the New Haven. Do a little bit out here on the top as well. All right, and we'll just let that dry. Now don't worry about putting it on too thick. because you're going to have so many levels of thinner on there. It is going to lighten up, thin up, and it might remove some of the paint, but that's really not too worrisome. But it does dry rather quickly, and as you can see here, it does definitely highlight many of the details as it settles in. Now you can either do the wash line flat or at an angle. I'm doing it at an angle for photography purposes and for the fact that these cars are going to get repainted in gray anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. But I mean, you can see here, it definitely does bring out the rivet detail, and it brings out the seam detail. You know, why it did this on this car, I'm not sure, but it does dry up pretty quickly, and it just does bring out that detail. So next, we're going to be doing 2 sets of rust. And there's a reason I do it like this, and it might work for you, it might not. But it's worth giving it a shot. So rust does 2 things when you apply it. First of all, because cars tend to stand up like this, rust tends to settle into the cracks, and it has a tendency of running down, and that's kind of the effect that we want. So we're going to take our regular rust, and we're just going to apply it liberally, just like so. No real rhyme or reason. Make sure you get those side racks. Now we can do this 2 ways. We can run our rust mix, or we can run our airbrush. I'm going to do just with the brush. And all we're going to do is we're going to apply liberally. Thinner and gravity pretty much work its way down and where it has to go. Like I said, Tycos are a great way of practicing these skills and making these skills work. And one of the things too with rust is you really don't have to worry too much about where it goes, because rust is just going, it's going to go anywhere, and it is the drippings and all that. It's going to kind of settle in. But you definitely want to have gravity do its job. We're going to let that one sit. And like I said, with thinner it dries pretty quickly. And I might give it a spray coat. I might give it a little bit of a wash with the airbrush, just for my satisfaction. But just remember, rust, and yeah, I'm going to make this roof pretty rusty here. rust flows where rust flows. This one here, I think I'm going to have to use the airbrush on. I think I did too much, but that's okay. And I'm just using regular old testers. As I put more on, as you can see, it thins out. It finds its niche. We're going to make this one pretty rusty. All right, let's give that a bit of a rust thinner wash. Wow, that went pretty quick. Let's get a little bit of thinner here. Because, yeah, we put that rust on pretty heavy. But this is the nice thing about rust, we can thin it out. Really, the more rust you put on, the older the car will look, which is kind of what you want. So, you see here, but you do want it on wet. We're going to give this and it is going to pull in spots. And again, kind of what you want. And the nice thing about using jars with a rust wash you never have to worry about it being never too thin. Alright, we'll give that about 20 minutes or so to dry, and then we will go on to our next is grime. And all grime is it's a heavier wash, but it's like grease stains and everything else, stuff that would accumulate on the handles and the door endings and all that, just, you know, from rolling grease and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to apply our grime with a brush. Now, grime is another, like I said, it's just a heavier wash, but we also need that to pool up in certain areas like handholds, grabs, anywhere where grease accumulates. And rain hits and it just kind of pools up in spots. We're just going to do this on this unmarked door because it's not going to show up much on here, but I'll put some here. And again, grime is going to use gravity to work its way down. And as you can see with some areas here, that grime is already accumulated or worked its way out. You get a lot of grime around the steps. So we'll do that. And that will also accentuate the steps being kind of 3D like. Alright, we're gonna let that dry. And then we'll go with dust, which dust is best applied with an airbrush. So we'll be right back after these messages. Alright, now we're going to be working with our dust. Now dust is a little bit thicker than all the rest. I think you all are seeing a pattern here. We're just going to do one side. One of the things we do need to know when you're weathering dust is it's going to be lighter at the top and heavier at the bottom. So again, you kind of want to do your model standing up or at an angle like I've got it here. Now you want it heavier at the bottom, and when you airbrush, because this is basically the best way of doing it, you want to go in a sweeping motion like this, not an up and down motion, but a sweeping motion. And that's to denote the direction of the train, obviously. That's one boxcar. Our other candidate in. Alright, we'll just let those dry. And then we will do our last color, which is the sun bleach. Okay, I've given these about a good half an hour to dry. Now we're going to go with our final coat, which is sun bleaching. And all sun bleaching is a thinned out white that we're going to hit with the airbrush, and that's going to kind of fade and hopefully blend everything in correctly. And with sun bleaching, we're not going to be doing it at an angle. We are going to be doing it flat on both cars. Alright, here we go. Alright, we're going to do several coats of these, so we'll let this dry and then we'll show you the results. Alright, and so here we have the before, and now we have the after. So yeah, Tyco cars are great for experimenting with weathering. I actually like the way these look. These look a lot more better than they did. I'm going to work on 2 actual cars that are rail boxes that are just, they're way too clean looking. So that's going to be my next thing. I'm going to be working on those. I don't need to show you that because they're actually not Tyco cars. But stay tuned to see these converted into maintenance away cars in a future episode of Psycho for Tyco. Now I just wanted to throw one last thing on there. If you can see, on trucks always seem to get overlooked as well. So it's always a good idea to give those at least a shot of rust, and or maybe a sun bleach fade. But there you have it, folks. And until next time, I'm Psycho for Tyco. Hey friends, I know you're at the end of the video and all that, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out that if you're in Carson City or any of the surrounding neighborhoods, come on down to Mills Park, where the Carson City Railroad Association, my model railroad club, happens to be at. We've got both HO scale and N scale. We run modular displays. We also have, during the summer months, a 2-foot tourist railroad that kind of goes around half the park. Membership fee is about $35. If you want to run some trains, come on down. Just let us know. Link in the description, and the link is right here at the bottom. And have a good one. I'm Psycho for Tyco. We'll see you next time. It's the home. Oh, I did that one. Dirty car. Clean car. Dirty car. Clean car. Dirty car. Clean car. Dirty car. Dirty car.